this video, I'm going to talk you through a research method section of paper 1. And because in the revision session we did a questionnaire and we did correlations, in this one I'm going to do experiments. So this is from a 2019 paper, and the scenario for this one was you have been asked to carry out an experiment. So notice how it's in bold. It's very, very clear what the research method is, so you'll be able to tell straight away. And this one is to investigate whether learning is affected by time of day. The theory is that people will take longer to learn new things at different times of the day. So if I was in the exam, what I would do is I'd highlight experiments, take a highlighter in with you. I'd highlight learning, because that's obviously the DV, and then we've got time of day, which is the IV. We've also got the theory that people will take longer to learn new things at the time of day. So maybe that'll help you with a prediction, which is the next one. You get this space to plan your investigation. Now, I'll be honest, it's unnecessary. You don't need to plan your investigation. You can just go straight in and do the questions. You're not going to get any marks, whatever's in this box. So this is just for you. If you find it helpful to plan things, then do. If you just want to go straight in, then do. Some people might think about, right, what actually would I do as a study? And then that might help you then do the rest of the questions. But personally, I just like to get straight into it and I kind of make it up as I'm going along, which you can as well. So we've got a question, state an alternative hypothesis, which makes sense. It's an experiment. They love to ask about hypothesis questions. We're going to get that. So what would you put? So I would always say there will be a significant, because that's how most of them start off. Significant. Now, really, because it says the theory there, you'd think, okay, maybe I should do like a prediction of there's going to be a particular thing that's going to affect it. It doesn't matter, you're going to get the same marks either way. So I would just go with a non-directional one. So we've got, there will be a significant difference because we've got an experiment and we want in the DV. So we've got in learning, and then we've got between, what does it say? Time of day, between, difference in learning between whether, oh, actually, I'm thinking about how to word this. We need to say morning and afternoon, but I think I need to think of a way to word this. Between whether, let's put whether it is the morning or afternoon. So that's kind of like one that you could put. Let's see what's on the mark scheme, because it's always good to see what the suggestions are. So let's see, we've got, there will be a difference. And also, you don't even need to put significant on it and you'll still get the mark, in how quickly material is learned in the morning rather than in the afternoon. Or we've got people who are taught in the morning will recall more in a test than people who are taught in the evening. It says a null hypothesis can still earn 1 mark. But we need at least both variables. So even if you get mixed up and you put a null, they'll still be nice to you and give you a mark. You can't do relationships, that'll get you no credit. And it says all conditions of the IV should be referenced in the statement, which it is on that one. So I think we're okay there. Notice how that one actually, where it says recall on a test, that's probably a better way of doing it. But as you can see, you're not going to get penalised for it. So maybe we could edit this and put in learning, significant difference in learning on a test. In fact, what I might do is learning, I'll put scores on a test, because that would be fully operationalised. But as you could see, it's not necessary for the actual marks. And then we've got the 2 conditions there, so that's fine. Now we've got state the dependent variable. So this is going to be learning. Explain how you will measure the dependent variable in your investigation. So how are you going to measure learning? So you need to come up with something that they can do that then allows you to measure it. So let's have a look at some suggestions from the mark scheme. So we've got, just checking our DVs, we've got time taken to learn, amount learned, what is learned or similar. So we've got the candidate may begin to operationalise their DV, and this can be credited, but you don't need to. So putting learning's fine. You could put amount learned just to kind of cover yourself if you were worried about it. And then for a way that we could do it, so we've got here, I would ask participants to learn a piece of text and I would measure their learning by the amount of the text they could remember. So that's what the mark scheme suggests. So, oh, I've gone on the wrong thing here. Share this time and stuff. So we've got here, so what would I do to measure my dependent variable? I want to measure if they've learned something. So I might say, I would give my participants, because on this one you can actually use my and I would give my participants a story to read. Do a story to read. We're gonna do a story. Or you could put maybe like a fact sheet on a topic. You could do that as well. But I'll just put story. So I would give my participants a story to read, and then afterwards I would ask them to fill out a questionnaire. Or in fact, let's not make it complicated. I would then test them on facts in the story to see how much they have learnt. I would then give them, I would then, I would have a score out of 50, something like that. Let me just make this a bit smaller. So we've got, I would give my participant a story to read, and then afterwards I would then test them on facts in the story to see how much they have learnt. I would have a score out of 50. So we only need to be mentioning what the DV is. We don't need to be mentioning afternoon and morning or evening and morning, whatever you find it. Then we've got identify one possible extraneous variable that could affect your learning, affect your investigation. So what you're going to be saying is, what else could affect their learning that's got nothing to do with the fact that it's in the morning or the afternoon? It's just the two that I've chosen. And we've got to be careful because it's got to be something that we can control for. So something that we can keep the same for everybody. So I might say something, so let's not put something, an extraneous variable that could affect learning is noise in the environment. Is noise in the environment whilst they are reading. So I've got to put it into kind of a bit of context, right? Okay. Let me just check if that's okay. So we've got one extraneous variable may be that some people may be better at learning than others, regardless of time of day. So we've got to make sure you put regardless of time of day. One extraneous variable is that participants do the experiment in different places. Bit of an odd one, but yeah. And then explain how you would control it. So my one about the noise in the environment, I would ensure that whilst participants are reading the story and completing the test, it will be quiet for both conditions. Let's just see if we need anything else. So we've got 1 mark for some detail on how this control would work in the context of the investigation. I'd make sure the same reading material is given to participants in both conditions. So we could actually use, so I've put about making sure it's quiet. You might put something as your extraneous variable, like the type of story that they were given might be different, and then I'd keep it all the same. So depends on what you want to say, but yeah, that's enough for that. And then we've got to outline the procedure. So a lot of people don't like the procedure question because they're not sure what to put in it. And actually, you've got to put quite a lot in it. So for the procedure, it's basically, it's not just what you would do. It's like everything about research methods can go in this question, but it can't be anything they've already asked you about. So it's good to have a look at all of the questions. So they've already said how you would operationalize the DV, so we can't put that in, and normally we'd be able to put that in. They've already said about an extraneous variable, so we can't put that one in. And they've already asked us about ethics here, so we can't put that in. So things that we can do are, if it's an experiment, we can talk about the type of experiment that we would do. So we might put, I would use a lab experiment and invite all my participants to the lab to read the story and take the test. This ensures that there is high control and I can establish causality. I've probably gone into a little bit too much detail there, but it's just because we need to like demonstrate what a lab experiment is. Also, they've not asked us anything about sampling, so we can talk about sampling. So I would collect a sample of 50 people for each condition, so a total of 100. In fact, I could also talk about the design. Why don't we do a repeated measures design, and then that gives us something else to say, and then we don't need 100 people. So we'll do 50 people. I'll collect a sample of 50 people. Um, um, of a range of ages, ethnicities, and education background, because obviously we're doing about learning. I feel like the sample, let me just check the mark scheme, is one of itself, and you can also do, so let's see what we've got. We've got how the independent variable will be operationalized, because they've not asked questions about that one. So how are you going to do more in an afternoon? Who will the sample comprise of? How will it be gathered? So you can say like the sampling technique as two different ones. You can say the experimental design, which I'm going to do because it's a nice easy one. And then we've got any other controls not done already, although I'd avoid that one because you've already done a control. Who's doing it, with the location of it, although they're a bit difficult to kind of get loads of marks for because they've got to be quite detailed. And then we've got any instructions given. So this is an example of a 1 mark. So I would carry out my experiment in a classroom at my school using an opportunity sampling of 20 students at the school, but it's not detailed enough because you'd have to say, I would carry out my experiment in a classroom at school using an opportunity sample of 20 students. And then, oh, in actual fact, no, that's detailed enough actually, because then we've got another one for a repeated measure on there. Right, let's go back to what we were doing. So we've got, I would collect a sample of 50 people, a range of ages, ethnicities, and backgrounds. That's enough for the sample one. I would use a repeated measures design so that all 50 participants study the story in the morning and take a test, and then come back later and do the same thing in the afternoon. Okay, so we've got 3 already. And then, yeah, let's just do the sampling technique because that's an easier one. What could we say? I would use opportunity, because that's the easiest one to do. Opportunity sampling, and ask the first 50 people that are available at the time in my school restaurant. I would ask if they would like to take part in my study about learning. Let me get some context. I'm just going to put the test on learning so that we've got a bit more context on that one. It's a bit more difficult to do it for the sample one, but maybe if we put that with that one, then that's probably fine. So we've got 4 different things there, nice and easy. Obviously, ethics would be good if it wasn't already asked about. And then we could have operationalised RIV. So, like, what time of day would we be doing it in the morning? What time of day would we do it in the afternoon? That kind of thing. And if you'd chosen an independent measures design, you've got to say like how you're actually allocating them to the conditions. So you'd have to say like you're randomly allocating them. So that's just something, that's why I usually pick repeated measures, because it's a bit easier. And then we've got how would you deal with an ethical issue? So I'm actually going to go against what I said in my other video, and I'm going to say, oh, I was going to say confidentiality. No, I'm going to do protection from harm. So protection from harm. Protection from harm may be an issue in my investigation because the participants might feel bad if they get a low score on their learning test. Therefore, I would keep all their data confidential, so no one knows what their score is. Or I would signpost them to therapy to remove this psychological harm. I actually don't think in this question that you do actually need to say how you'd remove it, but let's just have a look at the mark scheme and see. So we've got one ethical consideration, right to withdraw. I would consider this by informing participants. Oh no, you do have to say it. So you do have to say how you would do it. So one way of dealing with ethics is debriefing, and the participants should be told what the real aims are. Yeah, so you need to say like what the issue is, what you do about it. So any of those are fine. And then what else have we got? So the next question is one weakness of using an experiment. Well, an experiment is let me just have a look, because maybe because we've said we're going to use a lab, haven't we? What makes the experimental method is. Yeah, so depending on what you've put, depends on what you're going to say. Because I've said I'm going to use a lab, I'm going to say about it lacking ecological validity. But if you'd use a field, you could do lack of control. So it depends, doesn't it? So I used a lab experiment, which means that results about the impact of time of day on learning may lack ecological validity, as it is an artificial environment. Oh, artificial. My brain is thinking too fast for what I'm writing. Environment, and so they may feel comfortable whilst being tested and showed about characteristics. Again, I think that's a bit too detailed, to be honest, but the key thing that you need to put in is that the lack of ecological validity. Let's have a look at an example on the mark scheme. So we've got one weakness is low ecological validity. This means findings cannot be related to real life. In this experiment, the method of learning used was not a usual task for participants, and so different findings may have been found. Oh, it is quite detailed actually. We've got demand characteristics, might guess the aim, harder to learn more in one condition. Let's have a look back at what I've just put. Results about how well as it's artificial, they may feel uncomfortable being tested. So I probably just need to add on this, and so this is not representative of the learning in the real world. So we just need a bit of a definition of what ecological validity is in the answer. Or you could put it can't be generalised. Either of those is fine. And then we've got the final question. Explain how you would calculate the mean score to describe your results. So I would add up all the scores from the learning test for each participant in the morning condition and divide by how many participants I had, which was 50. I would then do the same for the afternoon condition. This would allow me to compare to see which impacted learning more. So I'm being really clear here that I need a mean for each condition, which sometimes people forget to do. Let's have a look at the mark scheme. So we've got, is that it? It says 1 mark for knowing that scores in the data set must be added together to find the total. 1 mark for knowing that this total is divided by the scores to achieve a mean. The candidate does not have to demonstrate this knowledge in the context of the data from their study. Oh, so actually you don't actually need to say about, you know, put it in context, but really that is like a better answer. I suppose that's more of an A-level answer really, but it's a correct answer. So there you go. Hope that was helpful at describing answering all the answers for that section. As always, any questions, just let me know.